is Wednesday, my dudes.
Welcome to another episode of Wednesday Toast, a podcast about comic book stuff where we talk about all kinds of comic book related stuff. My name is Lex, and you are in for another solo slice episode. You might be wondering why we've been doing these sort of mini episodes in between our longer episodes with each other, and it's because I got a new job, and I've been in the process of still working my old job and working my new job and being a normal person that actually speaks to his wife and kids. So it's been really hard to try to blend all that time together and then sit down and record. But we are entering the era where I only have one of those jobs, and then Simon and I can get back to our regularly scheduled content. So I'm really excited about that. As you probably guessed by now, this episode is going to be short. So buckle up. I hope you can pop this on your way to work, on your way to the grocery store, or whatever you're going to do. Maybe you just want to sit in your car and ignore your roommates or family for a couple of minutes and listen to me rant about God knows what. I'm here for you for only about 10 to 15 minutes, though, so don't get too comfortable. This episode's going to be a little weird, right? It's still comic book related, but I wanted to talk about comic book Twitter versus comic book threads. Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Twitter has been a weird place, especially with an election year. I'm not going to get into politics at all. That's not what you're here for, but it just seems really rank right now. And it has been on a decline. That's why all these other Twitter clones have popped up like Threads and the many others, Blue Sky. And I get some people have built these big, huge followings on comic book Twitter, and they have no desire to start over from zero. I get it. I don't have a huge following. I love the people that do follow me for some reason. I don't have a huge following, so also you should probably take anything I say with a grain of salt. But yeah, I get it. People don't want to necessarily start over on a new platform. But comic book Threads is growing. And if you're over there wanting to grow an account, or you want to switch over from Twitter to Threads, then we're going to talk about some things that have worked for me. I've seen some posts on, how do we grow on this? This thing is dead. It's not dead. There's actually a solid community on there. And I think it does have the potential to grow. And I get it. I know some people don't want to join because their thoughts and views on Meta. I'm not here to sway you to tell you to join that. This is mainly for the people that are there, struggling to figure out how to grow, and maybe the people on X that want to leave, but they're not sure if they want to start over. Before we get into my very obvious and unoriginal suggestions on what to do on comic book Threads, I want to talk about comic book Twitter for a while. I don't talk about comic book Twitter as this glorious thing. It was, at best, the worst. Like, it was a ton of people either like posting for clicks, whether it's being engagement baiting or trolling, which I know is a huge part of what I contributed to comic book Twitter. So there's no shade to anyone that does that. That's just what it was full of. A lot of people that watch the comic book movies and then give their opinion on the comic books that they weren't reading, or people just like obsessing about their fandoms. It had a lot of bad things and a lot of great things. It was pure chaos, and I loved it. There are a few reasons why I originally even joined comic book Twitter, in a sense, and I was cringing at it makes me cringe now to even say those things out loud. But originally it was to promote the podcast, in a sense, even to back that up, because the podcast originates from a different sort of idea. It's no secret that I want to be a comic book writer and illustrator, and I figured while I work on honing that craft through classes and practice, I would try to build a little community online. And that way, when I finally put something out, I would have a small audience to gauge or get feedback from, right? And that's essentially what the podcast started from, and what my whole purpose for being on social media in general was. And then it just became a community. Some of the people that I met on there, I really enjoy talking to. And it was at a time in my life where growing up, I didn't really have a group of friends like I that watched the Saturday morning cartoons. Everybody did that. But as far as comic book goes, I didn't really have a group of friends that I could nerd out with. That even in high school, definitely didn't in high school. That wasn't even cool anymore. People were getting shoved in lockers and made fun of and things like that. And girls weren't into it. And definitely didn't have that in high school. But when I went to college, I met my core group of friends and still my closest friends to this day. And we would just sit in dorm rooms and nerd out. And we would go to bars and nerd out. And it slowly, with the Marvel movies and DC projects and things like that, it started to become more popular. And so it became more normal. And it was just a great time in my life. As time goes on, people graduate, they move away, right? Wife, kids, jobs. And so now I live farther away from a lot of my friends. We live in different cities. And so I feel myself missing that sort of community in a sense. And I found that on social media and I really enjoyed that on comic book Twitter. It is rough at times, but if you consume more than you create, and maybe that's my first suggestion, don't do that. Don't. It's easy to get like scrolling through a bunch of nonsense without contributing. If you want to grow an account, right? And again, take this with a grain of salt because maybe my first advice is actually don't really care about that at all. But I would say definitely I create on there, and I use air quotes when I say create on there more than I consume. I have a few of my favorite accounts that I will hit up and either engage with or see what they're talking about. But really, I like to, it's more sort of mini journaling for me. Micro blogging, I think, is what they used to call it back in the day. And that's how I use it. And I think that's how you should use it too. And so moving over to Threads, I took it the same route, right? And here is this is really unofficial. This is not one of those like marketing podcasts where I'm going to give you a bullet point list. This is going to be completely incoherent, but we're going to talk about it anyways. And growing over on comic book Twitter, probably the same things will work, right? And again, I have to hammer this home. I don't have a huge following. This is just me, what I observe. Take it with a grain of salt. Completely ignore it. But this is what we're working with. If you want to grow in the comic book community on Threads, and at this point you are helping build sort of the foundation of the comic book community on Threads, it's very simple. All you have to do is post more, right? And I don't mean like nonstop posting nonsense over and over, right? There's a caveat to this. Post about the things that you like, post about the trending sort of topics of the day, week. Like there will always be a trending something that everyone's talking about. And all you have to do is give your opinion on that subject. And you don't even have to do that, right? I would say find a character, a book, a publisher, something that you could talk about for hours, right? And if there's nothing trending going on that you want to comment on, just talk about that. Really explain to people why you love the thing that you love. And I'm a big proponent of talk more about the things that you love and less about the things that you hate. And it's a good time for everyone, right? It's easy to fall into the trap of talking about things that you hate. We all know the big YouTube channels and the big accounts that do that. We all think it's annoying, but it's so enraging that a lot of people can't help but comment. And there's sometimes that I'm like, that's annoying. I have to give my opinion on it, but I tend not to, right? That's another point is try not to engage with the nonsense. I'm very quick to mute, block, and just not even deal with any of that. And I suggest if you get annoyed by my content or me trolling or anything like that, do the same to me. It happens. I've found myself blocked plenty of times and I don't even sweat it because I get it. If I'm getting on someone's nerves, I shouldn't be in their feed. No offense. I'm totally understanding when it comes to that. When it comes to talking about things that you love, you don't have to specifically pick one thing, but I think it helps with what I was mentioning. It helps fill in those times that you don't know what to post. Some people get so wrapped up in the engagement that they'll post something like, I'm going to the comic book shop today, or I walked my dog today, and no one interacts with it, and then they get discouraged to post anything else. And you just gotta, I don't know, focus again on, if you're trying to grow on comic book Twitter, most of your posts early on should be about something comic book related. Like, I'm sure if you listen to the show and you follow me on social media, then you know that I talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a lot. But I do talk about all kinds of comic books, all kinds of movies, trending topics, casting, all kinds of things related to comic books, whether it's the show or just on my social media accounts. Scattering in images. I know Threads and Twitter are text based platforms, right? Microblogging, as we mentioned before. But posting a great panel, Dan Moore art, legitimately will get you any sort of engagement you're looking for. Posting, like sprinkling that in, doing a nice variation of like text post to pictures. And yes, you should credit the artist as much as you can, which is every time, right? And I know that I don't. Please do not hit me up and say, hey man, you need to do this too. There's sometimes that I don't. Sometimes I'm just like on the fly posting something and I don't always get to it. No one's perfect. Cut some people some slack, all right? Another big thing, and something that I need to work on more on Threads. I did it a lot on the early days of comic book Twitter, and then it just became routine. But I need to work on it more on Twitter or on Threads. But it's just really engaging with your favorite accounts on there, or just people that you've come across that just seem pleasant, right? The more you're having these engaging conversations and other people come across them and see them, they'll want to join, and then you start to snowball this little community. Now, I do have that on Threads, but I just need to be better at communicating with the people that I enjoy talking to on there. And I will. It's something that I'm working on. As I mentioned to you before, these are very obvious things. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not giving you something that you don't already know. Post more. Don't be discouraged by no one interacting with your early on comments. Engage with similar accounts and often. Post images that you think look cool, favorite panels that you've had. Focus on a character, a group of characters, a team, a publisher. When you have those times that you don't know what to post, just talk about your favorite creator. Talk about some of your favorite things that happened this week in comic books or in a comic book that you're reading. Something that I think helps a lot of people is go to the library, get a book that you haven't read before, and then just that's it. That's your content. You're doing a read along. You got the book and you're saying, hey, I read this. I'm reading this for the first time. I'm going to post my thoughts. And then periodically you post your thoughts when you come across something that is interesting to you. That's it for me. That's what I do. Now, there are other things that you can do that I do from time to time because I enjoy trolling in a sense of I don't really care about the internet in a sense that I don't think it's real. Obviously it's real, but people really care about things like this. And yes, I love comic books and I love these characters and the genre in general, but people like really care. They really care about movies. They really care about their opinion being right and yours being wrong. I could care less about other people's opinions on my opinions. But if you do want to engagement bait, then you just have to post a hot take, and like a real hot take. Some people post a hot take and then it's nothing. I have really silly hot takes, and sometimes people get really pissed off at those, as in me enjoying, not even saying that it is the best or even a contender for the best Ninja Turtle movie. I enjoy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. That is true, and for some people it's a hot take, and people give their opinion on it. That's fine. I tend to go more on the sillier things. I try not to be a very serious person online. It bores me when people are too serious, and it's like unhinged behavior to interact with strangers that way. So be careful, because some people are scary online, and I try to distance myself from those people. If you interact with me and I get on your nerves, I'm definitely 99.9% of the time just being silly. But yeah, don't take anything I say seriously. Something that I've noticed on Threads, though, when you post what I would assume is an obvious troll or a joke, the people on Threads, as of right now, and maybe it's because I haven't cultivated a community, the same community that I have on Twitter, but they really don't ever get the troll or the joke. They get really upset about it being engagement bait, or they try to correct you and they'll try to make you feel like an idiot or call you an idiot or call you a number of names They take it very seriously over there. And I have noticed it. It gets slightly annoying, but here we are. You got to work through some of those things, right? And again, I'm not saying this as I have, oh, they just don't know me on Threads yet, like they know me on comic book Twitter. I'm not saying that. I have a little group of people that I talk to on comic book Twitter, and they know usually I'm full of shit. And I would like to have those same people over on comic book Threads because, I don't know, I have an Instagram account that I'm trying to grow to help grow our show, and Threads is connected to Instagram. And if Twitter is a sinking ship, which I don't think it is, I think if you stay in your little bubble, which is I'm not saying ignore the outside world, but if you just focus in that sense of Twitter on comic book Twitter, you can avoid a lot of the crazy nonsense. But if you want to just be away from that altogether, Threads isn't a bad place. And that's not to say that Threads doesn't have that. I've interacted with a handful of those crazy people as well. So it's everywhere. It's mainly social media. Pick your poison, right? I'm circling the drain, but I just want to let you know that you probably didn't learn anything today. And I'm really surprised that you stuck around this long. I appreciate you listening. I can't wait. Simon and I have already got together. We're recording next week. I'm really excited about that. I have a ton of things that I want to do with him for the show, and I'm excited to actually get to do those things. This won't be the last Solo Slice episode. They're just easy to jump on here and ramble for a little bit and get to know you a little better. I'm circling the drain, as I mentioned. Thank you for listening. Thank you for still continuing to support the show. It blows me away. The people that went from the old show to this show and show up every week, and the people that post about it and share it with their friends. It is insane. And you are insane for listening to this, and I appreciate your insanity. With that, I'll see you next week.